These are my three lovely participants who are all over the age of 16. Alright, so how many credit hours are you guys taking and how many hours of sleep are you getting? Me personally, I'm taking 18 credit hours and on average I'm getting about 6 to 7 hours of sleep. That's kind of crazy because your credit hours are supposed to be how many hours after school a week you're supposed to be studying. So how are we only getting 6 to 7 hours of sleep? I want to look into what the quality of sleep and low sleep hours do to our mental health, our physical abilities, and our academic and professional lives. To start, I want to look at our academic and professional lives. We've all been there. 24 hours before a test or an exam, and you haven't even touched the material yet. And as you start to study, because obviously we're going to study, you have to start thinking, am I going to push through and pull all night or a late night study test? Or am I going to go to bed early, cross my fingers, and hope I can retain information to tomorrow's test? Both those situations ended bad deals for you. So, a study done by Carl Glennon O'Neill and Virginia W. Hunt and Andrew J. DeFilm, probably called To Study or to Sleep, solved this issue. They took a survey of about 200 kids in high school and looked at all grades of high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And they concluded that the hours spent after school studying was the same, but the amount of hours slept were decreasing each year in high school. How can that be? They found out it's because of the distractions at home and what the students were doing in their study habits. So we have to look at what are we doing in our lives as students or professionals. What are we doing when we get back home? What are we doing to study and to prepare ourselves to get there? Are we going back home and making on TikTok or Yik Yak? Or are we getting back home and putting the laptop up, getting the notebook out, and being an academic weapon? So the way they conducted the study was that they had all these students, and they would get back to school the next day for about a 14-day period. And each time they got back to school, they'd have to fill out a piece of paper. They had to say how many hours they slept that night, and if or if they did not study after school. If they did, they filled out how many hours. So through this, they're able to see that all the students are getting the same amount of hours of studying in, but with declining amount of sleep. And that the people that were older and had more accessibility to distractions and were not as focused in their studying were getting less amount of sleep. Next, I want to move on to recent issues that are getting more light. That's our mental effect. How does sleep affect our mentality and our mental issues, kind of like depression, insomnia, and loneliness? So a study done by Bing Yu and Adam Steffu and their colleagues proved that there is an inverse relationship between the amount of sleep you get and your mental health issues. So they found that, well, the idea of loneliness and isolation is not directly caused by sleep. Depression and insomnia are. And so they were able to find that the less hours you were able to sleep, the more you would be depressed the next day, the more you didn't really want to get out of bed, to want to move. And so that can affect all aspects of your life, right? If you're mentally not in this shape, then you can't be in there in any way to help anybody. So your grades will drop, your academics, your physical abilities will drop, and like your friends will probably stop talking to you or like not want to be around you as much because you're not being as good of a friend as you were previously. And so Dr. Zhang and his colleagues, another study that looked into the quality of sleep for middle-aged and adults and older adults. Now we were all close to middle-aged and older adults, so it is pretty relevant for us. Found that older adults had the number one reason of poor sleep quality was physical health, but not far after that, the second reason was mental health, and that your idea of depression and insomnia will keep you up longer at night, causing more physical and academic issues or professional issues while you are not able to get as many hours of sleep. Thank you. So finally, I want to move into the professional and physical aspect of what sleep can do to your body. So I want to look at the cognitive effect and how professionals will view you when you get so little hours of sleep and how that will affect. So a study done by Michael K. Scotland and Donald L. Buzzers proved that we can get older, that our cognitive abilities and our memory and wrinkles and how we look, that will go down no matter what we do. But the amount of hours we sleep and what we do, how many hours we sleep and the quality of sleep will speed up that process. And so by the age of if you're only getting 3 hours of sleep a night and you're 40 years old, you might have the back and the mentality of an 80-year-old. You might be able to function as a 30-year-old would in society. And so this can affect poorly on your professional life, on your academic life, or just your physical life at all. Now, the idea of cognitive ability and just physical health in general usually gets put aside for professional athletes or people who are in professional or like blue-collar jobs. But that's not the case at all. For many white-collar jobs, blue-collar jobs, or any job in general, you're still having to move around. And cognitive ability is not just physically and hand-eye coordination. It goes with problem solving, identification of problems, and just communication with other people. So in a professional scenario, if you're unable to communicate properly or solve problems efficiently, your team will be held back by you, and they might not want to include you in other projects, which can stunt your academic and professional growth. To kind of reinforce those statements I just made, a study conducted by Michael S. Christian and Alexander P. Ellis proved the biggest tie between sleep deprivation and workplace deviance is caused by self-control. The two researchers found out that the most distractions we had were by ourselves, when we get back home and what we do when we are outside of the workplace. This kind of ties into my first point when we're back at our dorms or back at our homes and academically are unable to focus back into school and back into work. And we start putting ourselves into a longer schedule of low sleep every night. And that can only keep rolling. It's very hard to stop those. So in conclusion, 1 or 2 nights of sleep, very low amount of sleep, studying, cramming for a test, it won't really affect you. It's natural. We're all students. It will be there. But to force yourself into like 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours of sleep consistently on a consistent basis will affect your mental, physical, and professional growth. Thank you. That is all.